I always thought raising kids, or in my case a stepson, was about helping them grow into responsible, practical young adults. But sometimes, it feels like you're just an audience member in a sitcom that you didn't sign up for, but somehow became a permanent cast member of. That's exactly how I felt on the Tuesday evening I walked into our upstairs bathroom and discovered my stepson, Jake, washing a wrench in the bathtub as if he were giving it a spa treatment. Jake was 11 years old at the time, with a mop of sandy brown hair that always seemed to need a haircut, no matter when his last one had been. He had the kind of energy that could power an entire small town if you could figure out how to harness it. He wasn't a bad kid, quite the opposite, but he had that curious, experimental streak that led to, well, incidents like the one I'm about to tell you. That particular day had been long for me. I'd been at work since 7 in the morning, shuffling paperwork, answering emails, and sitting through meetings where half the discussion could have been replaced with a single sentence. By the time I got home, all I wanted was a hot shower, a decent dinner, and maybe to collapse on the couch with my wife, Laura, and watch something brainless on TV. But instead, the universe had other plans. I had just dropped my bag in the hallway when I noticed something odd. There was a sound coming from upstairs, a kind of clanging mixed with water splashing. At first, I thought maybe Laura had decided to run a bath and drop something. But then I realized the clanging was rhythmic, like someone repeatedly tapping metal against porcelain. "Jake," I called out, climbing the stairs. No answer. Now, if you've ever dealt with kids, you know silence is rarely a good sign. Silence usually means they're doing something they're not supposed to do, or they're planning something you're definitely not going to approve of. So I followed the sound into the bathroom, and there it was, the scene that would later become a family story we'd tell for years. Jake was kneeling by the bathtub, sleeves rolled up, with the tub halfway full of soapy water. Floating in the bubbles was not a rubber duck, not action figures, not even toy boats, but a bright silver wrench. And Jake was scrubbing it diligently with a washcloth, like he was polishing fine silver for a dinner party. "What on earth are you doing?" I asked, stopping dead in the doorway. Jake jumped like he'd been caught red-handed in a bank robbery. He dropped the washcloth, sending a splash of water over the side of the tub. "Oh. Hey, Steve," he said, trying to act casual. "Don't hey Steve me," I replied, trying hard not to laugh. "Why is there a wrench in the bathtub?" Jake blinked at me with wide, innocent eyes, the same eyes he used whenever he wanted to get out of trouble. I was giving it a bath. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Giving it a bath?" "Yeah," he said, nodding earnestly. "It was dirty. Really dirty. And I figured, if people take baths to get clean, then why not a wrench? It's basically the same thing, right?" I couldn't help it, I laughed. Out loud. Because the logic, while completely flawed, had that childlike brilliance to it. The kind of reasoning that only an 11-year-old could come up with. "Jake, tools don't take baths." "They should," he insisted, scooping up the wrench and holding it proudly. "Look how shiny it is already." At that moment, Laura appeared behind me, drawn by the sound of laughter and splashing. "What's going on in here?" she asked. Then she saw it, and her face went through about 3 stages of confusion before she finally said, "Jake, why are you washing a wrench in the bathtub?" "Because it was dirty," he repeated, exasperated that neither of us seemed to grasp the obvious logic. I was trying to keep a straight face, but it wasn't working. Laura pressed her lips together, clearly fighting the same battle. "Honey," she said, crouching down beside him, "tools don't need soap and water. You clean them with a rag or sometimes with oil, but not like this." Jake frowned, clearly disappointed. "So, I did all this for nothing." "Not for nothing," I said quickly. "You did get it clean. I'll give you that. But next time, maybe let's not risk clogging the drain with soap and wrench grime, okay?" Jake sighed dramatically, as though we had crushed his budding career as the world's first tool washer. He drained the tub reluctantly, watching the wrench sink with a clunk to the bottom. And that should have been the end of it. But of course, with Jake, things are never that simple. Over the next few weeks, the wrench incident became a running joke in the family. Anytime something went missing, Laura or I would joke, "Check the bathtub. Maybe Jake's giving it a bath." Jake would roll his eyes and groan, but I could tell he secretly loved the attention. He had that streak in him, the kind that made him proud when his silly ideas became legendary stories. The real kicker, though, came when we had Laura's parents over for dinner one weekend. Jake, never one to miss an opportunity, decided to retell the story himself, dramatically, of course. So there I was. He began at the dinner table, heroically scrubbing away, when Steve comes in and acts like I'm crazy. But who's laughing now? The wrench is still shiny. Everyone laughed, even Laura's dad, who is usually as serious as a tax auditor. And from then on, it became part of family lore. But the story doesn't end there. Because a few days later, I walked into the garage and found Jake again with a bucket of soapy water. This time, washing a hammer. "Jake!" I exclaimed. He looked up at me, grinning mischievously. "What?" "You said not in the bathtub. So, I'm in the garage." Problem solved. And that's when I realized raising Jake was going to be an adventure full of laughter, messes, and endless stories that would someday embarrass him in front of his own kids. Now, years later, whenever we gather as a family, someone inevitably brings up the wrench bath story. Jake, now older and taller than me, groans every time, but he always laughs along. It's become one of those cherished family memories, the kind that reminds us that sometimes the funniest, most unforgettable moments come from the strangest ideas. And if you ask me, that's what family is all about, finding joy in the unexpected, laughter in the chaos, and stories in the silliest of moments.